Let me know if it looks okay. Perfect. All right.
Good morning, everyone. I am very grateful that you all could be here today. My name is Jeff Rose, and I am the Vice Mayor of Surfside, and it is my honor to be part of such an important day. Due to religious restrictions, Surfside's Mayor Shlomo Danziger was unable to officiate today's Remembrance on the Sabbath, but he is here with us. I want to thank the family members of victims and survivors for facing the pain of being part of this Remembrance event. I would also like to thank the elected officials for joining Surfside as we remember this tragic event. And thank you for their ongoing support, and Surfside continues to heal from this tragedy. I would also like to thank United States Senator Marco Rubio and Rick Scott for passing a resolution in honor of the second anniversary of the collapse. Commencing today's program, we are honored to have Father Juan J. Sosa from St. Joseph's Catholic Church deliver the invocation. In the wake of the tragedy, St. Joseph's Church served as a sanctuary and a guiding light, providing solace and hope to countless individuals in need. Father Sosa, we kindly request your leadership as you guide us in this invocation.
Good morning, everyone. As we gather this morning, we're called to remember and to pray for the losses we suffered 2 years ago today. The events that broke our hearts and that we can never forget. In his letters from prison, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who died in the Holocaust in a concentration camp, was a Lutheran minister, by reflecting on his impending death, describes his experience and probably the experience of those who have suffered the loss of family or friends. I quote, "Nothing can make up for the absence of someone we love, and it would be wrong to find a substitute. We must simply hold out and see it through." That sounds very hard at first, but at the same time it is a great consolation for the gap, as long as it remains unfulfilled, or it preserves the bonds between us. It is nonsense to say that God fills the gap. He does not fill it, but on the contrary, he keeps it empty and so helps us to keep alive our former communion with each other, even at the cost of pain. Close quotes. For this reason, we gather in God's presence to remember, and in remembering, to proclaim what we believe. Death is not the end, but a transformation in the heart of a God who heals and loves us. As we lift our prayers for those who were transformed by God and passed from death to a new life, we remember all those involved in the tragedy of June 24th, 2021, with whom we witnessed signs of new life in the midst of anguish and pain. The arduous and ongoing labor of first responders, the persistent willingness of people to share whatever they had with those who lost their homes, the comfort of counselors and chaplains, the commitment of the youth to put aside their choices to become ambassadors of hopeful news in the midst of bad news. And above all, the pushing aside of political ideologies that frequently become an obstacle to healthy dialogue among civic leaders in opposite parties who pushed aside their personal agendas to bond together for the common good. For the commitment of so many in this city and beyond, we need to remember and to give thanks. God of all nations, help us to keep the unity we experienced then, despite our anguish and pain, and lead us now to a future in which we can work together to build up your kingdom of justice, peace, and true love among ourselves and all humanity. Amen.
We've come together today with heavy hearts and overwhelming sadness as we remember and honor each of the 98 lives lost in the tragic collapse of Champlain Towers South 2 years ago. On On this day, we come together in hopes of finding support and strength throughout the unimaginable pain felt by all that were affected by June 24th, 2021. We remember the victims, their lives abruptly interrupted and taken from their loved ones, who are still coming to terms with the nightmare that is now their reality. They were sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, siblings, friends, and neighbors. They were the world to someone. They were a part of this small community, and their loss was felt immensely. Today, we honor the memories of the 98 people we lost, a reminder of their laughter, their kindness, and the ways in which they left enduring marks on our lives. We hold their families and loved ones in our hearts, and we wish we could ease your pain during this time of immeasurable grief. We also recognize those survivors that we're so ever grateful are with us. A home where you once shared so many memories is now a source of so much pain, heartache, and fear. We know that your lives will be forever changed by all that you've endured. We hold you close to our hearts today and offer you comfort and support. We remember those who fought tirelessly and showed strength while others were experiencing the most difficult moment in their lives. We can draw strength from the countless stories of resiliency, bravery, and compassion that emerged in our community in the wake of this devastating event. The selfless acts of our first responders who risked their lives without hesitation, the tireless efforts of search and rescue teams, and the unwavering support from our town staff, government officials, and communities near and far. Watching the overwhelming support of everyone who came forward with clothing, supplies, and food, people who created GoFundMe accounts was immediately filled with people looking to help and support in any way that they could. You all exemplify the power of humanity in times of tragedy. We remain grateful today and always. Not a day goes by that I don't think about what happened on June 24th and the lives that were lost. CTS was personal to me, not only as a member of this community, but as a place where my family and I shared so many memories. We'd gathered at the pool on weekends. My kids would run up and down the halls on Friday night sleepovers with their grandparents. My wife and I would stay there on an anniversary vacation. We celebrated family birthdays there. Because of this and my work, I was fortunate enough to get to know some of the residents at CTS, including some that were lost in this tragedy. I will be forever grateful that I had the good fortune and honor to get to know them, and I will hold those memories close to my heart, always. Their memory is truly a blessing. In losing a loved one too soon, I know that some days hit harder than others, like those days that you expected to celebrate a milestone or a holiday with your loved one, but that moment has been taken from you. Their absence hurts deeply. In those most difficult times, I hope you feel the support of this community behind you and know that we have not forgotten. Your sorrow is not carried alone. We stand beside you, offering our love and forever carrying the memory of your loved ones in our hearts. In a few moments, we will hear from family members of victims as well as survivors. I can only imagine how challenging this moment is for each of you and want to thank you for sharing. While this day may feel different for each victim's loved one, for each survivor, and for each community member, I hope that you can find comfort in knowing that you are not alone in your sorrow and that we remember. Today is a day to honor the lives lost and the survivors that are still struggling every day. In a truly remarkable display of support last year, the governor granted approval for the remaining renaming of this section of Collins Avenue as 98 Points of Light Way. We extend our deepest appreciation for his unwavering dedication over the past 2 years, particularly for his recent efforts to funding towards a permanent memorial in Surfside and the ongoing assistance provided for the independent investigation into the cause of collapse. Governor DeSantis is here today, standing alongside Surfside as we solemnly remember and honor our most challenging moments. It is my utmost honor to introduce our first guest speaker, esteemed Governor of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis.
Good morning. The collapse of Champlain Towers South represents one of the greatest tragedies in the entire history of the state of Florida. And to lose 98 lives in such a tragic and unforeseen way obviously left a huge mark on the victims' families. It left a huge hole in this community, and it really wounded the entire state of Florida. I was happy to see the outpouring and the response to such a tragedy. We had our great search and rescues on that pile as soon as humanly possible. And when you hear the news at 3 in the morning when I got woke up, you knew it was serious. But then when you got down here later that morning, you saw just how truly catastrophic it was. But we had people from South Florida. Then we brought in people from all of Florida. Then all throughout the United States, and even we had defense forces from the state of Israel there helping. We had so many people in the community come, band together to help folks who had been displaced, who help console family members of the people who were at the time still considered missing. And so the way this community responded, I think is a testament to the strength of Surfside, to South Florida, and to all the state of Florida. And yes, we were proud to be able to get $1 million to go to a memorial. We understand there's going to be more work to do, and we want to work with everybody to make sure that that's a fitting tribute. We are happy to have the 98 points of light way that people will see when they come here. That is very, very appropriate, and we hope to get a definitive explanation as to what happened. It's been 2 years, and we were waiting for that very eagerly, because yes, the state of Florida has taken some action on safety, but until you know definitively everything, that's really what we need so that we can ensure that this never happens again. But I appreciate the town here doing this 2-year anniversary. It's important that we keep these victims in our thoughts and in our prayers, and that their memory and legacy continues to shoulder on. A lot of people were inspired by the lives that these 98 lived. And I can tell you that firsthand, because we had people all across the state talking about some of the great people that died tragically that day. So we will not forget, and may God bless their memory. Thank you.
With an unwavering commitment that spanned from the very moment of the collapse until the completion of the rescue and recovery operations, Mayor Daniela Levine Cava stood steadfastly on site, embodying dedication and resolve throughout the entire process. Her consistent support has positioned her as an invaluable ally to Surfside, extending a helping hand during times of both triumph and adversity. It is a profound honor to introduce the esteemed Mayor of Miami-Dade County, Daniela Levine Cava.
Good morning, everyone. I'm your mayor, Miami-Dade County, Daniela Levine Cava, and like all of us here today, I have been wrapped up in the memories, especially this past week, but every day, remembering the moment that I learned the terrible news and all that transpired thereafter. It is truly hard to believe that it's been 2 years since this unthinkable tragedy. And here we are gathered again in strong bonds of remembrance and love, solidarity and strength. It does feel to me as though time is slowing. And I'm so happy that we are together in our grief today. Let me begin by thanking those who joined us here today, the families of those who lost beloved members of their family, our survivors, to our Governor DeSantis, to Representative Basabe, to our Mayor Danziger, Vice Mayor Rose, our Chief of Public Safety, Freddie Ramirez, and Director of our Fire Department, Ray Jadala, who were with us every moment as well, and to our to all of our first responders. If we could just give a moment of thanks to our first responders. So 2 years later, the beautiful memories of those 98 souls remain with us. They're embedded in all of us. The call is one I will never forget. The news that the building had collapsed, an otherwise ordinary night like so many others before it, it was just unbelievable. Like all of you, I felt sorrow, but also confusion, grief, anger that a tragedy of this magnitude could happen right here in our community, in our country, that it could happen in Miami-Dade County. And for the difficult days and weeks that followed, we stood shoulder to shoulder together with grieving families whose lives had been upended in that moment, and the hundreds of selfless heroes from our community, from the entire county, from the state, from the entire world, and everyone praying and searching for answers. Through the 33 days that we were here on site until the recovery of the final victim, I know that I felt the support of the entire world. The prayers of millions of people in different languages, time zones, it strengthened us so that we would not have to bear the burden and the pain of this tragedy alone. And together, we showed the unrelenting resilience of Miami-Dade County and how we do come together and we do love without bounds, especially in our darkest moments. It was during those hours that we witnessed not only the greatest suffering, but the very best of our humanity. We saw firefighters fearlessly rush into the rubble to rescue survivors, mere moments after the collapse, searching as if for their own, not wanting to stop. We had to pull them from the pile. We saw the first responders, true heroes among us. They worked around the clock without stop, through heat, through fire, smoke, and rain, doing everything in their power to find life or bring closure to loss, selflessly and without hesitation. And we were joined by brothers and sisters from around the world, including the extraordinary men and women of the IDF from Israel, who flew across the world to become a key part of our search and recovery mission, and more than that, to become an important part of our Surfside family. So while today is an impossibly difficult day, my hope is that we will continue to find solace in one another, in our shared grief, and in the unshakable spirit that defines this small but mighty town of Surfside. Surfside strong. And as we continue to navigate the path toward healing together, honoring the memories of those 98 precious souls, while steadfastly moving toward a future where such a tragedy will never, ever repeat itself. We're continuing to make strides to ensure the legacy of this event is a safer future with accountability and safety reforms here at the county level and at the federal level. We want to thank Representatives Wasserman Schultz and Bill Posey for introducing a bipartisan comprehensive condo relief bill to expand and ensure access to loans for critical structural and safety repairs, to the state for stepping up with revisions in our law, and to our county commission that has greatly improved transparency and safety. And I want to acknowledge our commissioner of the district, Mickey Steinberg, staff who are here, and thank our entire county commission for their leadership. We know we can't bring back those we lost, but we can do everything in our power to honor their memories by ensuring that it never, ever happens again. So to the families, my heart was with you then, it's with you now, and it will be always. We will continue to do everything in our power to ease the way. May this beautiful and remarkable community continue to heal, and may all those who suffered loss that day continue to find peace, and may we forever be Surfside strong. May God bless all of you here today, bless this town and all the people of Miami-Dade County, And may he forever watch over the families whose lives were changed on this day 2 years ago. Thank you.
Senator Chevron Jones is Surfside's new representative in Florida Senate. He has swiftly established himself as a resolute advocate for our community. In a remarkable short span of time, he has seamlessly integrated into our Surfside family, wholeheartedly embracing our shared values and concerns. It is with great pride that I introduce Senator Chevron Jones, who brings his unwavering commitment and dedication to serving our community.
Good morning. First, I would like to start off by thanking you all for allowing me to join you this morning, remembering the 98 lives lost 2 years ago. First, I want to acknowledge the families. There are absolutely no words we can say at this podium at this time that will mend your broken hearts. But I do pray that the support that continues to pour from this community, from this state, and from around the world reminds you that your family's memories will live on. To Governor DeSantis, to Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, and to all of you who showed up on that day 2 years ago, thank you for your unwavering support, for the unity that you showed on that day. Can we give them a hand this morning? I am truly honored to serve the people of Surfside in the Florida Senate. And while I wasn't here serving in this district 2 years ago, Senator Pizzo, who was the senator for this area, stepped up and he brought the necessary information needed for the Senate, for us to put rules and regulations in place to ensure that Surfside never happened again. And I also want to thank the governor for understanding those things and those needs that we needed here in Surfside to ensure that it never happens again. I do want to take a moment to also acknowledge the mayor. Mayor, thank you for your unwavering support that you showed these families and to the entire commission that you have shown to this community to show your resiliency, to show your strength, and to show that you are truly Surfside strong. To my colleague on the other side of the aisle, Representative Basabe, we will continue to work with the city of the town of Surfside to ensure that everything that we do in Tallahassee, that we ensure that this never happens again. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to attend the Surfside Commission meeting to deliver a legislative update. And at this meeting is where I learned about the support of the Israeli Defense Force and the Council General, and how so many from around the world poured in to ensure that individuals had their medications on that day. I also heard of the South Florida Hatzalah, who provided the medical aid to those very victims. It is examples of such that make me think of Surfside the way I do. And I think of the strong sense of community that resides here. I think of a town that is resilient in the face of tragedy. I think about how this community inspired people across America by coming together to support their neighbors in the days and weeks that followed in whatever ways they could. I repeat again, while there are no words of mine that could ever heal the pain still felt from this tragic day, just know that I am proud to stand alongside the people of Surfside, my colleagues in both the state, federal government, and here in the county, to let it be known that as long as we are here, we will ensure that we will do everything we can that this never happens again. God bless you.
Our next speaker, State Representative Fabian Basabe, has emerged onto the political landscape with an impressive display of passion and dedication. His unyielding commitment to Surfside has solidified him as a true ally. particularly during his tenure in Tallahassee, where he played a crucial role in securing the essential funding for the permanent memorial investigation. It is my utmost privilege to introduce Florida State Representative Fabian Basile.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Fabian Basile, and I was invited to speak here today because I'm the state representative of this beautiful city. But I can't help but stand before you in a much more personal capacity instead. The terrible tragedy this community suffered affects me deeply. Home should be the refuge, the protection, the calmness, the respite, difficulties of what's outside of our doors. And when we think of our loved ones in their homes, we think of them safest. 2 years ago, this certainty was taken from us. The void Champlain Towers South leaves goes far beyond what we see, far beyond what looks like emptiness in front of our beautiful ocean and beaches. Because this is not emptiness. This is a space so full of meaning. The void I'm referring to is the one that goes deep within our hearts and minds, and one that resonates with us all. But by doing so, also one that brings us together and creates an inherent bond of support and unity and empathy and compassion. Today we honor the 98 sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, friends, family members. We honor all those who lost their lives in that horrible night. And we honor those they left behind, to whom I'd like to say, we all lost them. The most difficult and challenging time that any city could ever face, in every way. I commend it for its strength and its capacity to endure. I commend it for today, for its dedication to remember, to honor, and to not let anyone forget Surfside is more than a community, it's a family. And I commend all who answer with fortitude and resilience when the unthinkable knocks on our door, and for being an extraordinary example, because you are what makes your city. Don't ever forget that. I would like to thank Mayor Danziger and the entire Commission Board for allowing me the opportunity to be here today and speak. May God be with you all. Thank you.
Director Ramirez was the Chief of Police for Miami-Dade Police at the time of the collapse, and now also serves as the Chief of Safety and Emergency Response for Miami-Dade. He and his men not only provided much-needed logistical support, but also played an essential role in the following weeks. Director Ramirez was present every day, providing aid and support in ways that went well beyond the scope of his duties, as well as his police chief. Director Ramirez was a beacon of strength when it was needed most. It is my honor to introduce Miami-Dade Chief of Police and Chief of Safety and Emergency Response, Alfredo Freddy Ramirez.
Good morning, family and friends. 2 years ago, within seconds, 98 lives were taken. But I remember a crucial part of those first 2 days was at the Family Reunification Center. But the ones left behind had anger, grief, confusion, sorrow, fear, and we all shared that together in a little room at first, right across the street, to a big hotel room. And thank goodness for our victim advocates, our chaplains, all the organizations that came to help us, because it was an insurmountable challenge for all of us, and thanks to the mayor and the governor and everybody who was there to help us move forward and start this 2-year process that's going to last a lifetime. This struggle will continue. For the first responders that were there, they will carry this with them for the rest of their lives. And hopefully we'll share it with the generations that come next so they know what happened here in Surfside. It wasn't just a building collapse. It was the loss of life and the bonding of a community. Another moment I'd like to recall was the evidence pile, where men and women were on all those piles of rubble for months at a time, searching by hand, by machine, with state assets from everywhere, trying to find the smallest item to bring comfort to the family. pictures, clothing, garment, religious items. Thank you to the religious community who was there to ensure that pieces of religious items that were in families for generations. We lost them as humans, but we did not want to lose them in memory, especially as a picture, to share forward to their generations. This isn't about us up here. This is about you. And this is about the struggle and the journey. And one day we'll find out why this terrible tragedy happened. And it's a process. And we're doing everything that we can, because all we are is human. We're human. And we're doing the best we can. And we will carry this forever. And I know people are going to be angry. People are sad. And I truly apologize.
At the time of the collapse, Chief Ray Jadala served as Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Chief. Alongside his dedicated team, he not only offered crucial logistical support, but played an indispensable role in the challenging weeks that ensued. Chief Jadala's consistent presence was evident each day as he extended assistance and support, and worked tirelessly to support Surfside amidst the chaos that unfolded. Chief Jadala served as a symbol of strength and stability. It was with great honor that I introduced the esteemed Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Chief, Chief Ray Jadala.
Eight 8,768 and a half hours have passed since our lives suddenly and tragically converged at the corner of Collins and 88th Street here at the town of Surfside. In a cloud of dust and a pile of rubble, many dreams ended that evening, and a nightmare began for many families who will never have the opportunity to hug their loved ones again. Before that evening, some of us were strangers, but others were neighbors, friends, and family members. Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, good morning. My name is Ray Jadala, and although today I stand before you as the fire chief of Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, that evening I stood here on this very spot as one of hundreds of first responders who descended onto Surfside, hoping to find life amongst the most horrific sights I have ever witnessed. The lights of fire and rescue trucks from all over South Florida lined the streets that evening, all pointing towards the site of one of the most tragic incidents our nation has ever seen. As a first responder, it is instinctual to run towards danger to save lives, as many of our first responders did that evening. The courage displayed by those men and women who were faced with the daunting task of making sense of what was before them is truly something difficult to comprehend. Pulling victims from the rubble, searching in areas that we now know were precariously standing, and running into a building to check for survivors were just some of the heroic acts that took place in those first hours. I recall an account where a firefighter later told me, hey chief, I looked at my partner before we ran into that building and I said, I guess this is it. Good luck to you, brother. Perhaps I'll see you at the other side in one way or another. This firefighter said a quick prayer and mentally said goodbye to his family and ran into the building desperately searching for survivors. This story repeated itself over and over hundreds of times with every single one of the first responders who were so desperately looking for signs of life. Each one of them with their own story and each one of them with their own fears. And although their stories were unique and individual, they were all working together toward one common goal. For those first responders, as the passing hours dwindled the hope to find survivors, their spirits were crushed, but they remained focused and determined. Because for every passing hour they endured under the hot sun and the relentless conditions, you, ladies and gentlemen, the family, were on their minds. Your despair, your pain, your anguish sat heavily on their shoulders. They found strength in the fact that despite your own pain, you showed them support and encouragement in ways that they will never be forgotten by these men and women. These acts of courage and valor are what is expected of these first responders. And although we saw hundreds of these examples here, It was you, the families who displayed unparalleled courage and valor in the face of so much uncertainty and pain. Parents who lost children, husbands who lost their wives, children who lost their parents, and families who will never be complete again. You are the real heroes. Taking your loss and making sense out of the senseless in meaningful ways, you have touched the lives of so many by honoring your loved ones in various ways. For the families of those we lost and for the survivors, it is undeniable that each one of you has endured trauma and pain in various ways and degrees. Please know that you have become beacons of light and hope to so many of us who live this moment side by side with you, and many of whom you've never even met. Our lives will forever be intertwined by this tragedy, and the loss here is unimaginable. No amount of time will ever erase out of our minds and hearts what happened here 2 years ago. These memories will go with us in our hearts until the day we part. For me personally, and for those who stood by my side daily, we are forever changed. Each one of you holds a place in our hearts, and your story and that of your loved ones will reside in our minds forever. This tragic incident brought to Surfside the most courageous, kind individuals I have ever met in my life. From our elected officials to our volunteers, first responders from around the world, and people who genuinely wanted to help, all came together to bring light into darkness. Some of these folks are now friends for life, while others have become family forever. This tragedy brought us to our knees, but the memories and the legacy left behind by your loved ones has lifted us up to our feet. Today, as we observe a second anniversary since that fateful day, let this be a reminder to all of us that life is short and fragile, but it is also resilient and beautiful. As active participants in our life stories, we need to remember that despite adversity and challenges, we have the opportunity to make significant and meaningful contributions, as many of you have already done. That we must live every moment as if it was our last, because one day it will be. And for that, I ask that we honor the 98 souls that united us here by living a life of purpose and meaning, as that is the essence of why we are here. May you find the strength to carry forward. May God grant you the serenity and peace to continue. And may you never forget that you stand side by side with others amongst this crowd who you could turn to when the pain is heavy and unforgiving. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
Our next speaker is Talia Neighbors, who tragically lost her brother, Ilan Neighbors, in the collapse. Thank you for being here today and sharing the memory of your brother.
Good morning. 2 years ago today, you were all strangers, and now you're all forever a part of me. For those I have not met, my name is Tali, and on June 24th, 2021, I lost my baby brother, Ilan. I struggled to find the right words to share today. I wanted to tell you about Ilan, but I could spend hours doing that, and it would never do him any justice. I thought to share some of the lessons I've learned since the collapse, but like all of you, I'd blindly trade those lessons for the ignorant bliss of having my brother by my side. But I knew I had to say something, so I decided to share a short excerpt in hopes that maybe it will provide some comfort and resonate with you too. As for grief, you'll find it comes in waves. When the ship is first wrecked, you're drowning, with wreckage all around you. Everything floating around you reminds you of the beauty and magnificence of the ship that was and is no more. And all you can do is float. You can find some of the wreckage and hang on for a while. Maybe it's some physical thing. Maybe it's a happy memory or a photograph. Maybe it's another person who is also floating. For a while, all you can do is float. Tall, and they crash over you without mercy. They come 10 seconds apart and don't even give you time to catch your breath. All you can do is hang on and float. After a while, maybe weeks, maybe months, you'll find the waves are still 100 feet tall, but they come further apart. And when they come, they still crash all over you and wipe you out. But in between, you can breathe, you can function. You never know what's going to trigger the grief. It might be a song, a picture, a street intersection, the smell of a cup of coffee. It can be just about anything. And the wave comes crashing. But in between the waves, there is life. Somewhere down the line, and it's different from everybody, you find that the waves are only 80 feet tall or 50 feet tall. And while they still come, they come further apart. And you can see them coming. An anniversary, a birthday, Christmas, or landing at O'Hare. You can see it coming for the most part and prepare yourself. And when it washes over you, you know that you will, again, come out the other side, soaking wet, spluttering, still hanging on to some tiny piece of the wreckage, but you will come out. Take it from an old guy, the waves never stop coming, and somehow you really don't want them to. But you learn that you'll survive them, and other waves will come too, and you'll survive them too. And if you're lucky, you'll have lots of scars from lots of loves and lots of shipwrecks. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Our next speaker is Mara, a survivor of the collapse. We are grateful that you're able to be here with us today. Mara.
Once I was taught that the feeling of being lost is when you don't have anywhere to go back to. That's how that night started, running away in the dust and through the sirens. My home and my life were crushed. I relive that night every night. Since then, my journey has been to build a safe place for my family. My journey continues. We, survivors, were never considered victims, or even worse, were reflected as responsible for the tragedy. Because of the judge's words, I had threats and had people not wanting sitting next to me. Still now, I cannot understand why the judge condemned my kids to be homeless. Is that the spirit of the law? During the 3 years before the collapse, I wrote more than 100 emails requesting the attention of different jurisdictions, but no one cared. We had city officials telling us that the building was safe and sound. How many people had to look the other way for the tragedy to happen? And even after the collapse, they continued to collect real estate taxes. Now, we're begging the politicians to give us some breaks to be able to rebuild. Beg is the word. In the process, we're even losing our dignity. I hope their presence here reflects their commitment to support our families. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the attorneys who portrayed themselves to work pro bono, that during the process made sure they bill their hours. During this process, we never felt represented. After 2 years, I still cry for the ones that are no longer with us, but I also cry for the abandonment of the surviving victims. I have accepted the tragedy. I have not accepted the injustice that came after that day.
Thank you, Mark, for speaking your truth. Our last speaker will be Mike Noriega, who lost his grandmother. Mike?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. As you can tell from the agenda, I was not supposed to be the last speaker. And in many ways, being here today kind of reminds me of that first night that I was here in Surfside, that I wasn't prepared for what I was walking into. I came here dressed to sweat today. And I'll never forget the first night that we arrived, when I got that phone call, seeing what the first responders had gone through, seeing what my grandmother was under. My family and I, we spent 6 days in front of this collapse site. When I first arrived, the scene was so devastating and overwhelming. All I could do was just fall to my knees and cry out to God. God, is this real? Is this a bad dream that I'm gonna wake up from? And after a few hours, I remember that God reminded me that your grandmother, Hilda Noriega, she lived for her faith, her family, and her friends. She lived her life from an outpouring of my love. If she's alive underneath that rubble, that my presence is with her and sustaining her. But if her body's underneath that rubble, her soul's in heaven with me. She's in my presence either way. Do you trust me with the outcome? And in that moment, it's in those moments where you have the least amount of control that God is not interested in the amount of strength that we have, but in the amount of strength that we have to surrender and trust Him in the moments that we just don't understand. When my family and I were walking around in those first early morning hours, my father had stepped on something and he picked it up. It was a birthday card that had been given to my grandmother 2 weeks prior, and it had butterflies that were imprinted on it. And when he opened it up and saw that it was from her prayer group that was given 2 weeks prior, we didn't know what that meant. And the sheer velocity from the collapse of the building, it just caused personal belongings to go every direction. So we wanted to see what else could be here. We found ties, clothing. We found bills, pictures. And we found 2 pictures of my grandparents. Still didn't understand what the meaning to that was. On that 6th day, my grandmother, that we lovingly called Kima, she was the 12th person found. And when those homicide detectives called us to the Grand Beach Hotel and we walked in, they gave us the devastating news. And after we gathered ourselves from breaking down and mourning and crying, one of the homicide detectives addressed my father directly and said, "We want you to know that when we recovered your mother, that we found this on her." And they handed him a brown paper bag. And inside of it were rosaries that she used to pray. And the significance is that my grandmother would use them to pray all the time. She fell asleep that night in prayer and woke up in heaven. And for me, it was such a full circle moment, because it was just such a loving act of mercy, because I'd been talking about how my grandmother lived for her faith and her family and her friends, and we didn't get to keep anything of hers other than the birthday card that symbolized her friendships, other than the pictures that symbolized her family that she lived for, and other than those rosaries that symbolized her faith. And it was closure in that moment that your grandmother's legacy is sealed, is kind of what I felt like God spoke to my heart. When we were all over here, there was the wall of hope, and there was a scripture up there, Psalm 34:18, that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and rescues those that are crushed in spirit. I didn't understand what that really meant then, but I realized that why doesn't God save us from a broken heart? But He wants to save us from a crushed spirit. It's because those things are different. That when your heart's breaking, that's not avoidable. We're all going to go through sorrow and loss and personal collapses in our life. But a crushed spirit is something completely different. It's where you lose your faith, your hope, and your purpose. And my life mission to honor my grandmother's legacy is then how can you endure a broken heart without it crushing your spirit? And so my encouragement to everybody is that there's purpose in our pain, that passion is a result of suffering. How do you know if you're passionate about something? You're willing to suffer for it. And my prayer with everybody is that you find purpose in your pain by using that passion, not to be passionate about resentment, but to be passionate about restoration. Yesterday we lit 98 lanterns, symbolizing that we're releasing each soul into eternity, but the flame of their legacy, of each legacy, continues to burn on in our hearts. Let's honor all of our loved ones by love being our legacy. Thank you.
It is with great privilege that we invite Pastor Ezekiel Fattori from Casa Church to lead us in the benediction. Casa Church emerged as a hub for dedicated volunteers actively engaged in providing support and aid in the aftermath of the tragic collapse. Pastor Fattori, with gratitude for Casa Church's impactful involvement, we invite you to deliver today's closing benediction.
I would like to thank the mayor, vice mayor, city of Surfside, staff, but to the friends and family, we're sorry for your loss. If we haven't said it enough, our thoughts and prayers are still with you. But every time I go through a season of distress or sadness, I like to read this psalm from David that says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely, your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." So, I lost my dad in a very tragic way 5 years ago. And 3 things from this passage helped me go through it, and I would like to pray over these 3 things. One is that God is our provider. Whatever you need from Him today, you can ask Him. Do you need comfort? Do you need answers? You can go to God. Second thing I love when David says, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley," because we need to walk through pain. We don't run through pain. Every time there is an anniversary of the death of my dad, I ask myself, should I be over already? And I answer myself, no, I don't need to be over. Because it doesn't get easier, I get stronger. So I pray that you let yourself go through the pain today. If you need to cry, you cry. But you remember that we're walking through. We're not staying in pain, because pain is never a destination. And third thing is that if there's one thing I'm sure of, is that God is good all the time. Let us close in prayer. God, thank you so much for being able to be here, to remember. But thank you because you're our provider. I ask that you provide today the comfort that my friends need today. I pray that if someone needs to cry today, if they need to walk through the pain, that you walk with them. And I pray that we remember every day that you are good. Even when we're full of questions, you're still good. Thank you, God. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you to all of our speakers today. Through your words, the memory of every one of the 98 lives lost will persist and forever be ingrained in our hearts. You've given us the opportunity to reflect and remember every unique individual that was taken too soon in the ways in which they impacted the lives of others. The love, laughter, and joy we share within the walls of Champlain Towers South will forever be a part of who we are. You remind us to hold our loved ones tighter and appreciate every moment we have together. We are also reminded that our community can be a powerful source of strength and comfort in a time of dire need. As we remember and reflect, we must also recommit ourselves to the pursuit of safety, accountability, and justice. The memories of those lost must inspire us to learn from this tragedy and work towards preventing others from this heartache. We must continue to rebuild our community that was shattered by this tragedy and continue to support each other through the pain in those most difficult times. I would like to thank everyone that helped in putting together a ceremony today, and thank you all for coming. This will be the conclusion, and I invite everyone to go over here and see the walls of hope which we set up over here so everyone can remember the 98 souls of lives that were lost. Thank you again.